I see you there. What a gift, everyone. We have got a brand new and the first 1.17 snapshot. Now, people have already covered what exactly is in this update, and we essentially get a first look at lots of the blocks that we saw from the Minecon Live livestream. But instead of just going through each of these blocks in turn, I wanted to show you some of my initial thoughts and ideas for these blocks in terms of practical use in Minecraft. So let's dive straight in. I can't zoom on my face, so I'm just gonna use the telescope. So we get a first look at some of the items in the game, amethyst shards, which are used for crafting, and bundles, but we'll talk about them a little bit later on. We do get our first look at the spyglass, and I will stand by what I said in my initial thoughts, that it's not quite as good as the Optifine zoom. I will say that. We can now put lava in cauldrons, which is pretty cool because it means we've got an actual trash can. But let's move on to some of the more exciting things in this snapshot. The first two things are two blocks that they didn't name in the live stream. So we have the grey block Tuff and the white block calcite. Now, there's nothing that jumps to mind when it comes to blocks like these for, you know, really intricate tricks and tips and building designs. However, they will make excellent blocks for building buildings. So out the back here, I have produced a B-Dubs style house. Now, I have used one of B-Dubs' designs because I'm no great shakes at diorite-based houses, and this block, calcite, goes perfectly with diorite. Man, I never thought I'd say this. So what I've done is mimicked one of B-Dubs' styled houses, and there'll be a link down below if you want to know how to make houses like this. Man, I built this a little bit too close to my wall. 1 minute. So what we've got here is a mixture of calcite and diorite, which go pretty well together. But what you'll also notice is I've used the Tuff block as the foundation base layer. And I've got to say, they look super at home in Minecraft. Now, you actually get these blocks in Amethyst caves, or at least that's what I assume, because if we go into spectator mode, there's a couple of these chilling down here, and it looks like they naturally spawn around these blocks. Now, the generation hasn't changed, but this looks like where you get it. Now, this is interesting because these Amethyst caves are not that common. If we look around, we can see a couple here, but not a huge amount. So that leads me to think that these two blocks may be relatively difficult to come across and to farm lots of. But we're absolutely ages away from the final update. All we can say is that these blocks work really well in building houses. Let's move on to the next thing that has been introduced in this snapshot, and it is tinted glass. Now, it basically is normal glass with the exceptional feature that it doesn't actually let light in. So you can see there's all these weird shadows. If I go in here, it is dark. It is literally so dark in here. You can barely see me, which is a very, very weird and unexpected feature. Now, I have got some use for this a little later on to show you, but it's kind of all mixed in with some of the other stuff. So it is odd. It doesn't actually look like normal glass. You see that the texture's a bit different. It's got kind of this sheen on it. It's interesting. Now, I have to admit, there's not a lot that I can think of for copper ore, apart from the old trick that you can do with redstone ore as well, where you put vines on the top of it and then you get berries. But I'll be honest with you, I've shown this trick before with redstone ore, as I said, and I don't think I've ever used it. So I don't know if that really counts. As it is, I couldn't really think of much. But moving on to probably one of the highlight blocks, the Amethyst. Now, it wasn't actually the looks of this block that got me super interested in it, it was the sound. When you place it, it makes the most satisfying tingly-bingling noise. And when you walk on it, you get a very gentle tingle sound. You know, I'm going to turn the sound right up so you can hear it. It's a really nice sound. I'm going to have to turn my sound down now because pretty loud. So, what can you do with this block? Well, apart from wallpaper and ceiling blocks, I didn't come up with an awful lot. However, you can, if you like the sound, create an invisible floor of amethyst, with some carpet and still enjoy the tingling sound. Now there's a variation of amethyst called the budding amethyst. Now this thing is not something you can actually mine or acquire in the game as of yet in this snapshot. Maybe you will in the future, who knows. But crystals grow from this, and they steadily grow from a small little thing here all the way up to this giant spiky thing. Now, I really want these to... They look so dangerous. I kind of want these to hurt if you fall on them from a great height, but we'll get to that later. So, I came up with just some weird ideas, I guess. This is like a hanging chandelier. They do give off a tiny little bit of light, but they're not really that great for light, so I wouldn't recommend it. However, it does look pretty unique as something you could hang from your ceiling as a chandelier. Now, you probably saw this earlier, but you can also put an amethyst cluster on top of a respawn anchor that has been activated. So you pop it on there, and it kind of looks like a wizard's spell, like lectern type thing. And what I've done is kind of surrounded this with amethyst under the floor, but also you can see these particles. Now these particles rise from the respawn anchor, giving it this really nice effect. And you might be able to hear that I've actually hidden a nether portal just behind this as well. And you kind of get this really nice like particle effect, making it seem even more wizardy than usual. I'm sure more ideas will follow with the amethyst and the amethyst cluster, but here's some preliminary magical ideas for those blocks. Now, moving on probably to the highlight of this snapshot, and indeed with the update, copper blocks. Now, a copper block is made up of lots of copper ingots, making it an extremely expensive block. We don't know exactly how this is going to work yet, but we can take a look at what it looks like. And this is what it looks like. You have copper blocks, which then age steadily to weathered, semi-weathered, all the way up to a weathered block. So it goes from this lovely orange colour to this lovely prismarine blue colour. And then you've got these really useful blocks in between. And then you can turn that into cut copper if you want, and you end up with this really long name that I've never seen before in Minecraft. Lightly weathered cut copper stairs. Semi-weathered cut copper stairs. That is a tongue twister if I ever saw one. So what can you do with these blocks? Well, again, there's nothing that springs to mind in terms of like beds or, you know, anything like that. However, I have made just a little basic design along with Pearlescentmoon of something more steampunky. So this is a design for a steampunk based room, because basically what these copper blocks allow us to do is make really industrial and steampunky style builds. Look at those oranges, they work really well. And of course, like the weathered copper block, these look like old tanks that you would see in factories and stuff. And then we've got our like pipes. So you kind of get the idea. These blocks will be very, very useful for this specific style. But it must be said, as it stands, these blocks are extremely expensive to make. So I'm not sure how that's going to be balanced. And then, as I said earlier, we had the tinted glass. Now, this is one of the ideas I had for it. This is a greenhouse or an orangery, whatever you want to call it. Now, this doesn't let in any light, which allows me to make a little bit of a strange atmosphere in here. It is quite dark, but I can light it up with some of the candles or however I want, and it gives a very strange atmosphere in here, but I actually really like it. So, steampunk. Very cool and very possible now. So we just mentioned them. The other thing that is in this little snapshot is candles. Now, I did actually say in my thoughts video that we may see coloured candles, and I was absolutely right. We saw black candles in that video, and we also saw white candles. And they are very exciting, mainly because they float. These candles actually float. Now, you can light them with a flint and steel, and they give off a very cool effect, along with light, depending on how many candles you have. But we're not here to talk about how they work. We want to know what we can make with them. Well, this gives us so many options. For a start, you can put them on cake. This is a specific feature that they added, but you can only add one candle. But I like that attention to detail nonetheless. My first thought when I saw these candles was Harry Potter. So in this sort of hall-like thing that I've made, I've got a bunch of floating candles. Now, I've actually used tinted glass for this entire build so that it is completely dark in here under normal circumstances. and then I can light it up using the candle. And look at the atmosphere that it creates. You can see outside, and you still get this very dark atmosphere in here. So I think what I'm basically saying is Hogwarts is back on the menu. Along with the amethyst and the floating candles, this is a very wizardy update, which is not what I was expecting, and I absolutely love the effect that these floating candles have. Mojang, if you are watching this, please, 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 please keep the candles floating. How cool is this? We don't care about physics in Minecraft. Look at this. And also, take a look at the lightning rod clock. This is a pendulum. Of course, I maybe prefer using the bell in this, because you could make a slightly bigger clock here with a bell, and then you got a proper pendulum. We'll come back to the lightning rod as probably the last block, because I've still got a couple more candle ideas. Now, you probably already know this, but red candles, they look a lot like a stick of dynamite. Very old school and very sort of cartoony, but you know, put them next to some TNT and it totally fits. It totally looks like a bunch of dynamite, which I think looks pretty cool. And we used to do this with pickles. We used to just put pickles on top of pumpkins to be a stem. But if you want a slightly thinner one, here is the green candle that works for both the melon and the pumpkin. Although I've got to say, a mixture of the two in a field would work pretty well, if you see that. And then one of the more obvious things you can do with candles is make a chandelier. Now, I could probably make about 5 to 10 different chandelier ideas, but I just wanted to show a couple of them. So this one is very floaty. All it is a dark oak fence with 4 dark oak fence gates surrounding them, and then the candles on top. This is my favorite design. It is kind of floaty, there's lots of gaps, but I actually really like the way that it looks, and they give off a decent amount of light as well. And then we've got another design over here, which is more sort of gothic and got chains hanging from it and all that kind of stuff. But you can really go nuts with any of these designs. You can change them out for walls or anything. Like, chandeliers have never been more possible. Now, the last thing to look at is the lightning rod block. The lightning rod, made out of copper, and the most unique of all of the new things added in terms of shape. So you might have noticed that we used the lightning rod a little bit over the course of the builds that I've showed you. So we're going to have to sort of backtrack a little bit and show off some of the designs for the lightning rod. Now, these connect in a very cool way. You can have them stacked like this, or they are directional and you can have them either that way or reversed. So this is an exceptional block. The only feedback I can give about this is that, to me, it almost seems a shade too bright. Compared to this copper, it seems a little bit oversaturated, but it's the shape that is going to make this stand out the most. So, going back to our B-dubs inspired house, at the top we have what you might expect. It's an actual lightning rod spire. I just wanted to show that it looks pretty cool on a house. Check it out. I mean, why wouldn't you do that? It looks awesome. But you may have also noticed that I put the lightning rod on top of a fence design, and I think this looks really cool actually, especially if you made slightly more complicated one. It looks like a really nice detail and a feature for any kind of fence, especially works quite well with acacia. But this isn't the only thing that I thought the lightning rod could be used for. I have my own little room that I skipped over earlier, where I've used it in various things, including a gym, lifting up some very heavy copper blocks. Now, I've used copper blocks here because it matches the colour of the lightning rod the most. But if you want to get fancy with it, a couple of netherite blocks works just the same. Pull-up bar, and of course, a table. There's lots of options with this lightning rod as a supporting structure. Even if you want to just hold up a plant pot, it works, and I'm sure it would work equally hanging up things like shelves. Like so. This block has a lot of utility. It's just quite bright and very eye-catching. So in normal scenarios like this, I keep being drawn to all of the bright orange in here. And you can of course use it to hang some lights from as well. Overall though, this is a magnificent block and can be used and will be used in various and many ways, whether it's tables or just wall decorations. So I kind of did this whole thing in a very strange order. Wow, that looks really weird in my hand. It's kind of floating. Strange. Okay, so that's kind of it for my initial thoughts, ideas for building tricks and tips for all of the new stuff we've seen in the snapshot. Now, we're probably going to see many more snapshots like this over the coming year, so if you're interested in seeing stuff like this, you've really got to let me know, or I can just wait until the actual update comes out and do a huge video. But it's really fun experimenting with the new blocks and seeing what's possible with the upcoming update, so that all of you are prepared for when it goes live and we can all go and make beat-up style houses. So there's nothing left to say except thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I shall see you in the next video. Bye!